going to tell you a story, and it's not going to be neat or easy to follow. It's going to take 10 parts, and you're going to need to pay attention. Did I say that already? Oh, and there may be a hint of a cycle. Welcome to the Aurora Wasteland Lifecycle. Episode 3. I think I've stumbled across something big, something I need to tell the world about. I'm not sure how to do so because I don't know if I fully understand it. It's bigger than everything, so I'm going to need you to pay attention, read between the lines, and come up with your own conclusions because I'm not going to lay it out for you. I've discovered 10 posts in the Aurora Wasteland that when laid together tell a story. A story that is going to change the world. So pay attention. I think I said that already. But it's true. Pay attention and think. Think outside the box. As well, you'll see. Maybe. Archived Aurora Wasteland post number 3. Originally contained in one of the volumes of Musings from the Aurora Wasteland. Life in the year 1926 was, to put it mildly, challenging. Let me recap for the kids out there. No internet, no TV, nothing but sticks to play with. Okay, that might be taking it a little far, but you get the point. Life was hard. You shit in a wood hut. Who knows what's living down at the bottom? If you happen to go to a doctor, they'll just most likely drain all the blood out of you. And if you happen to get a special little tingle down in your nethers, well, if you're lucky, you know the location of a nice curvy rock you could stare at. Life was challenging. Stan, a mid-30s laborer, left his family in search of a job to make money. He loved his family, and leaving them was agonizing, but he did it for them. He wanted them to have what he never could, a better life. So he set off down the river, leaving his tribe and his family behind. He followed the gentle curves and bends of the river for days. Eventually he reached a mining town named Bankhead. Editor's note here, don't mistake Bankhead for Barhead. It appears the province of Alberta, Canada has a limited imagination when it comes to naming towns. The story of Stan takes place in the town of Bankhead. The town of Barhead is where the legend of Mo and their reoccurring took place. The town of Bankhead was a commotion of people. From Stan's perspective, they looked more like ants. Each had a task it was completing, completely unaware of the other ants, while at the same time working in unison as to not get in each other's way. After locating the mining town's office, Stan applied for a job, which he easily got. His skills matched what they were looking for, people that could dig. Elated at the opportunity, Stan stowed his few belongings in his assigned tent and set off to find the mine foreman. The mine entrance was enormous. The rocks around the edges looked like teeth, they were so sharp. As sunlight gave way to lamplight, the color of people's skin faded from white quickly. Stan had never worked in a closed-in mine like this before. He'd mostly worked in coal mines that were basically massive pits in the earth. For the first time in his working life, Stan knew his expected outcome: death. Closed shaft miners didn't live long. He knew that, but the money was good, so it didn't matter. His family did. The sounds of people coughing echoed through the deep tunnel further than Stan went. The heat rose, and the air had a foul smell to it. It wasn't a pleasant place, to say the least. Eventually, Stan found the foreman. He was a white man named Cooper. In fact, he was the only white man Stan had come across this deep in the mine. While Stan insisted that his shovel skills were top-notch, Cooper assigned Stan to work sanitation, which consisted of carrying buckets of shit out of the mine tunnel, removing any dead animals that found their way into the cave, and worst of all, dragging any dead bodies out of the working area and back out of the cave. He was given no cart for any of these tasks. Cooper told him all new people go through this. It taught them to be civil when eventually someone else new showed up to take their place. So until a new warm body showed up to work, it was Stan's job to get rid of the cold ones. Later that day, following a tragic turn of events, Stan had his first body to remove from the mine. Cooper instructed Stan the mine carts were reserved for money-making resources. The dead body would do nothing but cost them money, so Stan had to drag the body out of the mine and then take it to the burning pit, where the body would be destroyed. Much to Stan's disgust, he dragged it out of the mine and to the burn pit, which was located just outside the camp and downwind, since the smell of burning corpses tended to decrease productivity. Upon arrival at the pit with the body, Stan met the burn pit's supervisor, Lawrence. Yes, Lawrence was the supervisor of the pit itself, to which Lawrence joked it would be the only level of power a black man could possibly be given in a camp run by white men. Supervisor of a hole in the ground. As the two men talked and got to know each other, Stan asked why they burned the bodies. He wondered why the dead weren't given more respect. He told Lawrence about the ceremonies that his people did for the dead, how they cared for the bodies even after death. Lawrence told him that normally the dead are treated at least mildly better, but this camp was different. No matter what color your skin was, you were burned in the very pit Lawrence was in charge of. Confused, Stan asked why, to which Lawrence replied that there was an infection in the mine. Not everyone gets it, but it grows on the dead, thus the burning. Still not grasping the scope of what was happening, and how a mine that had an infection was allowed to continue operating, Stan asked Lawrence what they were digging for, and why they weren't being more responsible. To which Lawrence replied, "In their eyes they are. Why do you think the mine camp is primarily made up of native and black workers? Like themselves. They are expendable." Lawrence went on to tell Stan how he'd worked in many mines before this one, and that this mine wasn't normal. Stan reiterated the question. What were they digging for? To which Lawrence didn't reply. He only pointed at the dead, potentially infected body, then invited Stan over for dinner. Stan accepted and returned to work. There were no more dead bodies to remove from the mine that day, only buckets of shit that made Stan wish for more bodies. Later that night, as Stan finished off the dinner Lawrence had made for him, Stan opened up about his family. He told him he wanted to be able to make a better world for his family. He wanted the world that he grew up in to be better than the one his kids did. This made Lawrence laugh. He didn't believe the world would ever change, that people like them would never be allowed anywhere other than the bottom. Stan disagreed, and said that it was thinking like that he was trying to change. Lawrence laughed and told him good luck with that. The conversation quickly faded away from the world outside the camp and drifted into talk about the camp itself. Stan was still confused about the infection from the mine. How could the dead become infected? Which Lawrence corrected. People didn't get infected after they died. They got it while they were alive. It was the infection that filled them, though despite everyone calling it an infection, Lawrence knew what it really was. It was a mold that overtook their lungs, a blackness that would spread, filling their lungs, eventually killing them. He also clarified that it wasn't the black lung. That was very different. A long-term death. This was quicker. People who became infected with it died within weeks. And despite what many in the camp claimed, there was no clue of infection until after death. Stan was astonished by this. The infection of the mold seemed impossible, which led to more laughter from Lawrence and him leaving the table. He returned with a book, Musings from the Aurora Wasteland. The volume he had is unknown. Lawrence told him he could borrow it and return it with all his inevitable questions. Stan stared at the book with a look of sadness on his face. He told Lawrence he couldn't read and thanked him for the opportunity, but he'd have to decline. Lawrence declined his decline, and that if he was going to make the world better for his family, he had to be able to read. He was to come back every night, eat dinner, and he'd do so until Lawrence had fully taught him to read, because, as Lawrence put it, everyone needs to know about the Aurora Wasteland. Stan had never heard of the Aurora Wasteland, so Lawrence filled him in. He told him it was an area of land that contained a large amount of strange and weird paranormal phenomena. Lawrence told him about a girl named Mahal who had battled an actual infection, not like the mold from the cave, but a real infection from something that could control people's minds. The thought of it threw Stan's mind into overdrive. He had been told ghost stories from his grandparents. He even remembered a story about someone named Mahal being told to him as a child. The stories had never really interested him. That is, until now. Now, with it right at his doorstep, he was taken by all the stories he had been told. He badly wanted to learn more, so he agreed to Lawrence's proposal. He'd come here every night, and he'd learn to read, and he would learn about the Aurora Wasteland. The next day, there were 2 dead bodies in the mine, and 3 the day after that. Stan's visit to Lawrence at the burning pit seemed to be increasing. Lawrence called it a pattern. The digging in the mine must be getting close to something. A week later, and a few dozen more dead bodies, Stan was promoted. There was a new crew, and he no longer had to remove the bodies. Cooper promoted Stan to front of the mine. He would be working with the crew that worked at the very tip of the tunnel. Though Stan wasn't sure, given what he knew about the mold, that was actually a promotion. He accepted the role despite his uncertainty about it. The money was better and didn't require him carrying any more buckets of shit. That night, Stan missed his regular scheduled dinner and learning with Lawrence. Concerned, Lawrence grabbed his lantern and set out to look for him. He didn't have to travel far to find him. Based on the noise and lights coming from the mine, Lawrence knew exactly where he was. It wasn't uncommon for Cooper to keep certain people to work into the night if he felt they were at a potentially new vein. Lawrence followed the noise deep into the mine looking for Stan, deeper than he'd ever been. The ceiling got lower and lower as Lawrence approached what he believed to be the end of the mining tunnel. By the time he found Stan, Lawrence was crawling. Cooper kept repeating over and over that they were almost there. As motivation, his voice echoed off the mine walls. Just as Lawrence reached Stan, Stan's shovel punctured through the cave wall and into an opening filled with the black mold. Cooper told everyone else to leave. They were done here. He didn't want them getting infected. He told them no one wanted to be here when that hole was opened any further. As the workers around him left, Stan stared at the hole, his shovel still half into darkness. Lawrence clasped him on the shoulder and told him it was time to go, despite his own want to stay. But to stay here was to court death. As Stan pulled his shovel out of the hole, he noticed the end had been eaten. The black mold had devoured the steel of his shovel's blade. At the sight of the shovel, quickly Cooper got them out of there and sealed his mining tunnel as best he could. He tasked Stan with riding to another camp that was only a short ride away. He had to inform the financial backers of the dig that they found what they were looking for, and they needed to come collect it quickly. Stan accepted the task and set off on horseback, leaving Lawrence with Cooper to seal the cave and contain the mold. Stan followed the river by the glow of the moonlight to the other camp, where he told them everything that Cooper had told him to pass along to them. By sunrise, he and the other men from the camp returned to the mine, to find it nowhere near how Stan had left it. The mining town was covered in the black slime mold. As they cautiously moved through the town towards the mine, it became clear the mold had escaped the mine and covered everything, killing and removing any life as it spread. The building, the tools, the people, they were all covered, all dead, frozen in place as the mold had killed them. A simple tap would cause the coated object to billow away in a cloud of black death. Most of the camp had been asleep when the mold spread. They died in their sleep. Lawrence was found in his tent, clutching his books. Stan salvaged as many of his books as he could. He continued his quest for reading through Lawrence's Aurora Wasteland books. Cooper was found with a barrel of lantern oil and matches in hand. It appeared that he was trying to burn the town down, and likely the mold with it. But that didn't happen. The mold had killed him. With the voices from the men excitedly talking about what a wonderful tool the mold would be, Stan finished what Cooper had started. He lit the lantern oil and watched the town, along with the mold, burn. Or so we've been told. Did you see it? The start of the story. Remember everything, because you're going to need it. I can't lay it out for you because I'm not sure I understand it. Still, the message, the idea is big, and well, you'll see. Hey, my name is Vaughn Ashby. I wrote this. If you liked what you heard, head on over to VaughnAshby.com/free and pick up a free novel or a bunch of other free stuff. Go explore the Aurora Wasteland yourself at AuroraWasteland.com. Don't forget to check out the Stories from the Wasteland podcast and search for Vaughn Ashby on YouTube for video versions and other exciting videos. Thanks for listening.